eels on the bottom on the other side, also known as a nago. Probably about 90% of all the fish you folks will be seeing today are on there, but not all of them. So if you folks have any questions like, hey Donnie, what's that weird thing out there? It looks like this and that. Just kind of describe what it's shaped like, what it looks like, and I'll try to identify it for you. I'm going to be trying to talk about stuff as I go by the windows as much as I can, but sometimes it's hard to look at it both sides at one time. You guys see the bottom down there? Yeah. See the dark patchy stuff?
Yeah.
Well, that's coral. There's many different types of coral. I'll try to go over all the different types as we go along the dive. I'll see a white grainy stuff down there. It kind of looks like sand or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's sand. You folks would have never guessed. Come on.
I would have.
We're going to get a little bit closer to the ocean floor. Right now, this is all natural light you guys are seeing down here right now, shining down from the sun from up above. Okay, there's the whole bunch of fish over here on starboard side. Down there is the South Reef. We're going to get a little bit closer to it next. And we're going to maintain about 3 feet off the bottom. Now we call that the South Reef, folks, because it is south of our North Reef. 180 degrees in the opposite direction of the North Reef. It's made up of clay coral. Kind of like plate stacked up with a kitchen sink or something like that. It's kind of like fungus that grows on the side of a tree or something like that. Remember, there's no flash through the windows, okay? It's going to happen, you're going to get a reflection off of it. Now, if you want to take a picture of your family inside, you can use a flash, but not through the windows. Through the windows, just turn it off. Just going to get a reflection. Comes out a whole lot better. Now, throughout the dive, you folks are going to notice wherever there's a lot of structure or a whole lot of coral, that's where all the fish are going to be, fish-like structure. So if anybody wants to ever be a successful fisherman, even in a lake, fish are on some kind of structure that's under the water, a pile of rock, a tree that fell down the lake. It goes for the ocean too.
Oh my God.
So again, you guys have that sushi menu down there. If you guys have any questions, just let me know. You guys see a little solid yellow fish on top of the reef over there on starboard side. And it's called the yellow tang. He's the smallest of all surgeon fish. You guys can hear me say that quite a bit, surgeon fish, because there's so many different kinds. One thing they all have in common is they have spines down by the small of their tail. They're known to be as sharp as a scalpel. See, if you grab them by the tail, it's going to slice your hand open, right? That's why they call them the surgeon fish. It's a protective little mechanism there. It's like little switchblade knives. Folks over here on port side, you guys have absolutely nothing. Just like to point that out to you. I'm here to point stuff out to you, right? But you will in just a moment. Of course, you can only put it on one side at a time, right?
Isn't that amazing?
So here's all the blue striped snappers right here, coming up on port side. Here we go. So you guys seen how we just kind of did that the entire dive? These striped snappers down there in the sand. There's a sea cucumber tail over there in starboard side just a moment ago. It's a type of trigger fish. It's called the durgeon, and they call triggerfish. And there's also many different kinds of triggerfish too. But one thing they all have in common is they have a little horn they can pop up on top of their head. When they do that, it looks like a gun trigger. What they use it for is if something was to try to harm them, they'll dive into the reef and use it like an anchor himself in there and wedge himself in there with that horn. It makes it really hard for like an eel or something to drag them out of there and eat them, right? And he has really tough skin. I mean, it's really, really thick. It's like, I don't know, 1/16 of an inch thick.
Oh, yeah?
You can even cut it with a knife. So that like an eel's teeth, you know, they have razor sharp teeth, can't even penetrate his skin. It's a pretty hardy little fish. As a matter of fact, our Hawaii state fish is a triggerfish. Can anybody say the name correctly? Okay, it's the Humu Humu Nuku Nuku Apua'a. That's his name. The Humu Humu Nuku Nuku Apua'a. That is his name, and he's actually on your sushi menu, by the way. On the shark side of the card, all the way at the top on the right, says wedge Picasso fish. That is a Hawaii state fish. Now, the Humu Humu Nuku Nuku Apua'a translates into the triggerfish with a snout like a pig. That's what that translates into. Now, Huma Huma Nuku Nuku Apua is also the state sobriety test if you get pulled over by the police. But they make it even harder. They make you say it backwards. Kind of like they do the alphabet, right? So yeah. I want to practice that one. Mai Tais can get the best out of anybody. All right. Alright, so now we're going to take off now and go to our next reef. We're just getting started. The dive gets better and better. People in real need of a cinder block, that's for sure. Did anybody see a cinder block yet? Okay, if you guys see one, you guys let me know. Okay, I'm actually counting those for the Maui Police Department. There's a limitation. Because looking at the corals, anybody know what coral actually is? What is coral? Does anybody know? What is coral? What is it made out of? What is it? Okay, it's a combination of 3 different things. It's an animal, it's a mineral, and it's also a plant. The animal part of it is called a coral polyp. It's really small, a little bit smaller than a pinhead. It has little tentacles that come out at night, grabs things, go by in the current, has little stinging cells like brine shrimp. It'll sting it and digest it. Okay, now when it grows, and it doesn't grow very fast, produces an exoskeleton on the outside of the body, which means a skeleton's on the outside of the body. That's what exo means. And that's made out of calcium carbonate. That's the mineral part of it. That's what makes it look like stone and makes it really sharp. Then it lives in a symbiotic relationship with a special algae called zooxanthellae that only grows on coral. Without that special algae going on the coral would die. And that's what coral is. It has its own little ecosystem going on there. Coral polyps absorbs nutrients from the special algae. Now what determines the shape, sizes, and colors of the corals is its genes. Just like we're all human beings, right? We're all different shapes, sizes, and colors because of our genes, same kind of deal. That's what it is. Now it's very sharp. You just barely rub your skin against that stuff out there, even though it doesn't look all that sharp. It's like little tiny calcium razor blades. It is so sharp that you wouldn't even know you're cut by a coral till you get out of the water and you're bleeding all over the place. By that time, the shark's already looking at you, right? And now there's a bunch of blood in the water. You had no idea. Now you guys might have saw a fish. There's one over here on port side. I know you guys saw one earlier on starboard side because I see him. It has an orange stripe on the side. That's an orange band surgeonfish. Looks like it has an orange band-aid on the side. Anybody see any anchors go by?
Yeah.
There's another one on port side here. Those come from whaling ships. There's a whole bunch of them down here. Lahaina was the only place the King of Hawaii would let people stop and anchor to get supplies for their whaling ships. Was right here in Lahaina. You guys look around the town of Lahaina. There's no high-rise hotels, right? Because it's protected as a U.S. historical landmark. You can't build any large hotels or change the character of that town at all. It's against the law. So it'll always look like that. It's been looking like that since the 1920s. Looking exactly like that. Okay. So if you lost your anchor back then because the line snapped or the chain broke, how are you going to get it back? This is the 1800s. There's no scuba gear invented yet. That's how come they're all over the place out here. I've heard stories of close to 50 ships at one time anchored at once out here, trying to get supplies and waiting their turn to go ahead and get stuff in the town there. Anybody see anything over there on starboard side? Looks like little plants or trees. Looks like you're flying over Kentucky in a small airplane. Yeah. I think there's some deer running around out there. Look at the deer. That's Halimeda algae. It's a calcifying algae. 30% of all the sand in Hawaii's white sand beaches. And they make sounds. I don't know if you guys know this, but sound travels 7 times better and farther under the water than it does in the land. Did you guys know that? And we have proof of that because we have sonar on the submarine. We can pick up the sounds of the goatfish. Okay, but we're going to wait because the transducer that picks up those sounds in the water is actually on starboard side mid-ship. So we're going to wait till we turn around, get a little bit closer to the goatfish. We're going to turn it on and see if we can actually hear the goatfish. You'll have to be really quiet though. It's kind of faint. And it's kind of funny because it kind of sounds like a sheep or a goat kind of sound. It's kind of weird. So it's pretty interesting. So, okay, now we're starting to get close to these goat fish now. So, be really quiet, guys. We'll see if we can actually hear that. Go ahead. Did you guys hear that? That's a goat fish right there. You guys didn't believe me, did you? That's the coolest thing ever.
Oh my god.
That's awesome. That's the same sound they make when you bite into them. They kind of scream a little bit because they're really good to eat. I guess you're not supposed to eat them when they're still alive. They really do have little whiskers they pull down from their chin. Looks like a goatee and all, but they use them to kind of sift through the sand. They're like feeling for crabs and crustaceans that live in the sand. They do that mostly at night. Anybody see a fish out there look like a long tree branch?
Yes.
That's called the trumpet fish. If you see anything that looks like a stick, that's a trumpet fish. It's not an eel, okay? And they call it the trumpet fish. When he goes to feed on another fish, his mouth flares out at the end like a horn, and he sucks up another fish like a vacuum. He doesn't have any teeth. That's why they call it the trumpet fish. And he can change colors too. He's kind of like a chameleon, like a lizard. So if he wants to blend in with yellow fish, he'll turn yellow. He'll turn it to be anything from almost dark black to bright yellow. At our next reef, there's probably going to be a couple more of those too we can check out. Who here is afraid of sharks? Just to let you guys know, you have a better chance getting killed by a falling coconut than bit by a shark in Hawaii. Now, locals here, we don't worry about that stuff. You guys know why? So we know we can always hear them coming. It's a true story. It sounds exactly like this. So if you're in the water, you guys hear this, you're swimming, you guys hear this, it's a warning sign, right? Just get out of the water as fast as you can, walk on water, do whatever you gotta do. It sounds exactly like this. There's always somebody yelling, right? Pretty cool, huh? So unless you guys hear that, I wouldn't worry about it too much. There's only one shark out here that's kind of dangerous. I've only seen like a couple of them in 7 years from the submarine. We don't have a lot of them, okay? It's known as a tiger shark, and that's falling from trees, right? Now, what if they made scary movies about falling coconuts? You guys would be terrified of coconuts. Pretty sure. Crazy coconuts. Watch out for the coconuts. Ah! Just like that. A lot of people think when they go and swim in the water, there's a shark waiting right there for them. That's just not the way it is. Okay? They're not there waiting for you. Has anybody ever touched a shark before? I heard that shark petting is the new sport. You guys might want to try this. It's kind of like Fear Factor. It's on TV. Shark petting. It has rough skin, kind of like sandpaper. Yeah. As a matter of fact, they used to use shark skin as sandpaper. Oh, check it out. Port side, we got a shipwreck. Check it out, port side. What's the name on the stern there? It says, Pride of America. Oh, that's terrible. Isn't that ship that was...
We got a cinder block over here.
Oh, you found a cinder block?
Yeah.
Cool, thank you. 2 of them. Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, now this is a real sunken shipwreck. We sank this thing as an artificial reef 7 years ago. It's known as the Carthaginian. Okay, Carthaginian. It was built in 1920 in Germany. Sailed around the Baltic Sea as a cargo ship. Did that for about 50 years or so. Early 1970s, it was purchased by the Lahaina Restoration Foundation. They painted it and rated it as a whaling ship. It sat right there in the Lahaina Harbor as a floating museum for whaling for many, many years. What happened is they didn't take very good care of the ship. You know, the thing is made out of steel. What happens to steel if you don't keep good paint on it? It's like your car. It's going to rust, right? That's what happened, and the Coast Guard condemned it. And then we sank it out here as an artificial reef. Now again, wait a minute. We got a special sponge. There's sea sponge over here on port side. It's got SpongeBob SquarePants and things. He lives on a pineapple under the sea, but he likes hanging out on the shipwreck. That is sea sponge, right? So that's the deal. Cool. So you guys can see there's all kinds of coral growing on it. Okay. It grows about 1/8 of an inch a year. In a few more years, this needs to be completely covered by coral, one big giant coral reef. And if you notice, there's hardly anything at all on starboard side because there's no structure. Now the shipwreck's on port. It's a pretty big structure. I was telling you guys how fish like structure, right? There you go. Now I do have a picture frame. I'm going to try to pass this around here if I can find it. Excuse me. And this shows us sinking the boat. Okay, a little timeline photography. So this is going to go all the way to the back and back up the other side. Okay, I'm going to pass that around. Right there in the Lahaina Harbor, we filled that shipwreck with cement. 20,000 pounds of cement with a cement truck. Towed it out to the dive site with the tugboat, cut some holes just above the water line, and filled up the rest of the way with water from the hoses from the tugboat. That's how we sank it. Guys see that trumpet fish down there now? The long skinny fish on the starboard side?
Yeah.
Now, you guys get a really close look at the trumpet fish. He's nice, long, and skinny, right? You guys know that's how we get our fish sticks in Hawaii, is from the trumpet fish? It's pretty cool. He's already shaped like a stick. You just kind of cut him in half and deep fry him. It's cool. Really easy. It's awesome. See that there's like a big silverfish that's over down there by the rudder. There's a couple like ones that look like tunas. There's a bluefin trevallies, but there's another one with a big black eye. It's called the big-eyed emperor fish, also known as the moo fish. He also is known as the kani. Does anybody know what the word kani translates into in Hawaiian? It translates into man. Guys know why they call it the man fish? But if you look inside his mouth, he has teeth exactly like the human being or the teeth of a man. Matter of fact, they're exactly like your teeth, the same size, the same shape, the same color, and everything, in the same configuration. The first thing you look at or think of when you open his mouth is you're thinking that ain't right. It's exactly like your teeth. And he has molars just like yours to crunch on crab and lobster shells. That's all he eats is crab and lobster. What a nice diet, right? Makes him good to eat himself. Nice. So the government started protecting them, I think about 15 years ago. But check it out, they came back threefold. So it's one of those really good success stories about how conservation could really work if you manage it correctly. People always overdo it, right? No matter what it is. Down here in the sand, one of the best eating fish in Hawaii lives by the sand and the Halimeda algae. It's called the peacock razorfish. And when he sees us, he dives into the sand. He just dives into the sand and disappears. Yeah. And that's all he eats is crab and lobster. Check out this purple fish. See that purple fish chasing that gray fish over there on port side? That is called a parrotfish, also known as the uhu. Okay, now, very interesting fish for a couple of reasons. One reason is 90% of them are born female. That's 90%. You might be thinking why that is. Nobody really knows, okay? Nobody really knows why that is. You might be thinking, well, how do they mate? There's not any males around. If there's not enough males around, the most dominant female will turn into a male. Will change sexes and change colors and everything for real. There's a name for that in the underwater world. It's called a transvestite. That's what that is. That's a true story. Yeah. It's like the Chaz Bono of fish. Yeah. Just being honest. Okay. So the deal is there's only one problem. Once she turns into a male, she can't turn back, right? By that time, the brain damage has already been done. They start hogging the remote, building cars and motorcycles in the garage, building a man room. It's all over. That's a true story. Now, there's a real name for that. It's called sequential hermaphroditism. They really do that, okay? Another thing that's interesting about the uhus, or the parrotfish, is they make sand. You guys know how they make sand? Yeah, they eat coral, right? It has a parrot-type beak and crunches on the coral. Okay, and you can actually hear them crunch when you're in the water, but they cannot digest the calcium part of the coral. That goes out of the other end of the fish's sand. That's how that fish makes sand. Check this out. On average, one adult, just one fish, creates close to 1,000 pounds of sand a year. That's 1,000 pounds of sand coming from the rear end of just one fish every year. So basically, while you folks are up there at the beach, you guys are making angels in the sand. You guys have that stuff in between your toes. That's right, you guys are laying in uhu doo-doo the whole time. That's how come the locals are laughing at you. You guys had no idea. Now you know. Just use a 2-ply towel, right? 2 towels between you and the sand, and it's all good. Right? Now, you're gonna see these gray fish come by the windows here on starboard side. These are called opelucala. It's a type of surgeonfish also. They eat plankton. Now, what you really want to do is look right into their eyes. I don't know if you really understand this or not, but you folks are the ones that are inside the aquarium this time. Think about that for just a minute. These fish are looking at you. The roles are reversed. There's signs underneath the windows. You guys can't see them. It says, please do not tap on the glass or feed the humans. That's kind of funny, but it's really true. The Earth is a water planet. 70% water. We're not feeding the fish. Why else would they be coming by the windows? They're looking at you. Wouldn't that be really funny if big sharks kind of ramming their faces up against the windows and making you jump? I'm pretty sure you'd jump. And they're saying to each other, well, how do you guys like us now? How do you like us now? You guys believe in karma, right? What comes around goes around. Always remember that. Okay? That's true. You guys have any more questions? How many of you folks want a submarine now? You can build your submarine, actually build and design your own. This one was built in Everett, Washington in 1988 for right around $5 million. Nowadays, we're right at between $6 to $7 million for a new one. The problem is not buying one, it's maintaining one. Does anybody know what the acronym just regular boat, BOAT, translates into? Bust out another 1,000. Best kind of boat or vessel to have, folks, is to have a friend with a boat. Okay? I'm telling you that as a boat captain. I've had boat boats as long as I was able to, before I was able to drive a car actually. So yeah. Does anybody have a boat on a trailer? Raise your hands. Okay, the worst thing to do is leave it on a trailer. The best thing to do is use it. The more you use it, the more reliable it stays. Believe it or not, it's not like a car. You can't let it sit because all the like seals and stuff like that will dry out. Next thing you know, your boat's overheating because the impeller's cracked, and then you got the transit boot. Now it's leaking water, and you're starting to sink. There's all kinds of issues. Just use the thing. Okay. Best bit of advice I can give you. Touch this thing on the bottom. You guys ready to feel this thing slam into the sand? We're going to touch the bottom. Now, when you hit the bottom, you guys want to get out, stretch your legs, get a drink of water. I know we didn't have a restroom. Some of you might have been holding it. So there's a lot of little trees you go behind out there. They're not very tall. We're going to be able to see it, just to let you know. Cool. You guys feel that? Cool. We're down here at 129 feet. Now, we have a little tradition now while we're down here at this depth, and that is to lean over to your loved ones if you guys are a couple. Give each other a big giant kiss. You guys know why? Because this could be the deepest kiss you could ever get in your entire life. So just get it while you can. It's like some of these folks have been married for longer than 10 years, need a little romantic music, and I got a perfect song for you. You guys are going to like this one. From the movie Titanic, right? Now, while you folks are down here and you're listening to the song, does it give you just a little bit of a sinking feeling? Keep looking outside your viewports out there in the distance. Maybe you can actually see Leonardo DiCaprio floating on by out there. All white and pasty, looking cold. You can almost hear it now, right? Jack the boats are coming, I'll never let go. Well, gentlemen, notice how she let him go right after she said that, but she never let go of the blue diamond the whole time? Because diamonds are forever, aren't they? Diamonds, shoes, and handbags. I know the deal. Okay. Here's one thing about the song I'd like to point out to you. It's kind of strange. Celine Dion is actually singing about hot dogs. And right when she says hot dogs, we're going to turn it up. So you guys check this out. It's kind of strange, but we're just going to play it to you since we're already listening to the song. You're welcome, by the way. Because now you're going to be thinking about hot dogs and listening for hot dogs for the rest of your lives. There you go. Of course, I heard it a million times, so we kind of figured that one out too. Oh, she said hot dogs. Cool. So you guys may have seen a little reef out there. I believe that's Cakey Reef. It's a good example how fish like structure. Let's hear those electrical motor sounds. That's keeping us underwater. We are slightly positively buoyant. We do that for safety. So if we're positively buoyant and we were to lose all power, what would happen? We'd float up to the surface anyway. That's how come we never had to use any of that safety gear before. We never even ran out of power like that before that I know of. Okay. So this is actually safer than crossing Front Street. True story. All right. Here comes Cakey Reef. Now you can see these little fish out here that look like they're white on the sides and black around the edges. Those are called Oreo cookie fish. Like open an Oreo cookie. There's also an eel with his head sticking out there, just barely. You can see the eel's head on the port side. See his head sticking out of the reef. Okay, as we're looking at Cakey Reef here, it's just been brought to my attention from our pilot here, Ezra, that we're starting to run out of time. Yep, so right now I'm going to have you guys listen to the communications between the surface ops and the surface, and your pilot here, Ezra, and I'll be back with you in just a moment. It's all yours, Ezra.
Surface Atlantis. At depth near Cakey Reef for maximum over 120 feet, now requesting permission to ascend. Roger, ascend to a depth no shallower than 40 feet, 330 upon surfacing. We're leaving the bottom.
I got it on green.
All right, isn't that cool? Yeah. That is Atlantis number 4. Now, if you're wondering now what happened to Atlantis 1, 2, and 3, we're going to go ahead and show them to you when we're down there. Yeah, a little bit of a learning curve.